So after about a week of doom and gloom outside, we finally got a really nice day. So today I'm going to be installing and reviewing the brand new EVBASE running boards for your Cybertruck. Now there's a couple reasons why you might want running boards, and there's a couple reasons why you might not, especially in my situation. So I'm going to be addressing both of those issues, and I'm also going to be seeing whether or not the running boards get in the way if you have to jack up your truck to change out a tire. So first I'm going to go through the full installation, then at the end of the video I'm going to let you know what I think about them, and I also do want to let you know that EVBASE did send these out to me for the review. I'm not being paid, they just simply wanted me to give you my honest opinion. But if you do want to pick them up, I will be putting product links in the video description. So let's get started. All of the mounting equipment and running boards themselves comes out to about 80 pounds. So it's going to add 80 extra pounds to your Cybertruck, just in case you're wondering. So first impressions, they do feel pretty solid. They're also coated in this kind of rough texture. We also have the Cybertruck logo all over the running board. So that's just one running board. We also get these mounting brackets, which are pretty beefy as well. And it also comes with a wrench, so you don't have to worry about having any tools. Another thing to note, on the bottom of the running board, they do have L or R to let you know which side they're supposed to go on the Cybertruck. And we also get a big bag of screws. So personally, instead of it having an L and an R, I'd rather it have a D and a P to denote driver or passenger side. It would make it a lot easier for people to install. So from what I can tell from the instructions, it looks like the R is the passenger side, and just for other reference, the Cybertrucks on the running board have the flat side facing outward, and they're also going towards the front of your truck. That's how you know you're on the right side. Now before installation, I would recommend putting your truck into off-road mode and putting it up as high as it'll go, because it'll just make the installation a lot easier for you. I've got mine the second to the highest level. I didn't want to put it up all the way at max, so it's right below that, but we should have plenty of clearance to do the installation. You also want to put all of your bolts like this with the little crush fitting right below the bolt itself, and then the washer. There should be about, I think, like 31 of these. And if you look underneath your Cybertruck, you'll see these little holes here. That's where we're going to be mounting the running boards to, and there should be about 5 of these. And just for reference, it seems like we have about maybe like 14.5 inches of clearance from the ground to the underside of the Cybertruck on the second to the highest level. We'll see how much clearance we have after we install the running boards. Now for the installation of the right side, we need to make sure we use the left slot to fasten these to the Cybertruck, and then on the driver's side, we'll use the right slot. It's also going to mount just like this. So we'll put the screw up through the hole here, and then we'll screw that into one of the holes. You also want to make sure that you do not tighten these down all the way, because we need to make a little bit of adjustment before we do the final tightening. I'm also using my own tools just to make it a little bit easier. And in case you're wondering, the socket wrench size is a 12 mil. Oh, and something else very important to note that the instructions don't address, there are 2 different size bolts. One is a 13 mil and one is a 12 mil. The 12 mil bolts are used to mount the running boards to the mounts, and the 13 mil bolt is used to mount the mount to this underneath the Cybertruck. So just be careful of that. So really quick, something that future me just discovered is when I was going to install the driver's side running board, I discovered that I had a ton more of the 13 mil bolts than I did the 12. So it seems like you're going to install the 13 mil bolts for the mounts to the Cybertruck, and then you're going to also use a couple of the 13 mil bolts for the very front and the very rear mounting to the actual running board, and then everything in between the running board uses the 12 mils. And here's a little PSA for these 12 mil bolts. Do not torque these down too much because as you can see here, I sheared the bolt right off. But the good news is I did have some extra bolts left over after the installation, just in case you happen to mess up some of the bolts like I did. And when you're installing these for the first time, you can just hand tighten these bolts because we're going to need to make some adjustments later on. So this is fun. When they were installing my Cybertruck, they got some sort of industrial glue or something inside this little hole here, which won't allow me to put the bolt in. So now I have to scrape this out. Hopefully it's good enough so I can install this bolt. There's always something. It can't ever just be easy. Also, I want to make sure that I don't cross thread. All right, so now that we have those mounted, we could put our running board on here. But it should be just like that now. And remember, this is where you want to use the 12 mil bolts and not the 13s. See where the holes are right there. Definitely a lot more cramped under here than it was before. Again, you can just hand tighten these until we have the running boards where we want them. I'm just using my tool because sometimes it's a little hard to tighten with your hand. So once you have everything kind of hand tightened, now you just need to make your minor adjustments. What I would do is kind of pull your running boards out this way, which would create a gap between your truck and the running boards. And then you just want to make sure that all the mounts are straight, and you can kind of push the running board back and forth to make those slight adjustments as you need. Then once you have everything straightened, I would probably recommend tightening up the mounts to the Cybertruck first, and then we'll tighten up the bolts that go to the actual mount. All right, that's one done. And this is what it should look like when it's done. You can see that there's just an ever so slight gap between the running board and the Cybertruck. You don't want to actually have it touching so it doesn't scratch up your truck. But I think that looks pretty clean. Now we just need to tighten up the bolts that go from the mounting plates onto your running board. So now that we have the running boards installed, let's see what our ground clearance is now. So it seems like it's probably about maybe 14 inches now instead of 14 and a half, because the running boards are actually a little bit higher than these brackets underneath. So it's about 14 inches of clearance now. All right, so here are the running boards all installed. It's about a week after I made the installation video, and I just kind of want to now go over some of the little things that you might want to think about if you're going to get these running boards. So first of all, the quality, really good. They can hold about 550 pounds of weight, so that should accommodate about 2 people at the same time standing on the running board. Another thing to note is they do seem to slightly stick out a little further than your tires. So if you're going to be parking next to a curb or something like that, you need to be mindful about some curb rash, but they don't seem to come out further than the side mirrors. So if you can fit into a spot and not hit your side mirrors, you shouldn't have to worry about hitting the running boards either. Of course, there is some adjustment that you can make. As you can see, there's a slight gap between my truck and the running boards, and I did that on purpose because I didn't want it to be super close to my truck, just in case there was some rubbing or something like that. So I made a little bit, maybe a little bit bigger gap than normal. But you can push that in as much as you want and it'll give you just a little bit more clearance. It kind of seems like the running boards stick out maybe like a quarter of an inch more than the tires. But again, that's just enough to where you have to worry about curbs if you're parking super close. So for me, whenever my truck is parked, it automatically goes into its entry point. So it's sitting as low as it can be. And if you're getting into your Cybertruck with the running boards, you're actually going to have to step up and then step into the truck. Whereas when it's already an entry, you just kind of step in. But because you have the running boards, you have to kind of step over them. So if you're going to have your truck in entry mode all the time, the running boards will get in the way. So now let's raise the truck up to low. So low isn't much higher than entry. Still, if you want to get into the truck, you're going to have to step up and then kind of step into the truck. Whereas on low, you can pretty much just step in. Now, I'm about 5'10". For shorter people, it might be a lot harder, or especially if you have children or pets, the steps would then definitely come in handy. But if you're taller like I am, you're still going to want to step over the running boards just into the truck when it's in its low mode. So now let's put it into medium. So for me now, my feet are not touching the ground. So I'm now going to have to step down to get out of the truck, which isn't a big issue. But again, if you're going to have to get into the truck and you're as tall as I am, it might still be a little bit better to just kind of hop in versus actually, stepping up onto the running board and then kind of ducking and getting in. So again, if you're tall like I am, even at medium, you still would probably want to just kind of hop into the truck. But for children, pets, short people, it would definitely come in handy. So now let's put it into high. So now it's in its high mode, and for me, it's a step down. So for getting out on high, I might actually want to step onto the running board and then step out, definitely. And to get into the truck, it's going to be a little bit for me to kind of step up right into the truck. So for here, you might actually want to step into the running board and then get into the truck. Definitely for shorter people, you're going to want to use this step, and for pets, definitely if you're in high mode. So now let's take it into off-road mode and jack it up even higher. So now we're going to go into very high. And this is about 13.2 inches of lift. So for me, I definitely have to now step down, and I probably wouldn't want to just step out of the truck. So I'm definitely going to be using these running boards to get out of my truck. And then to get in, it is still a little bit high. So I'm probably now going to want to step onto the running board and then kind of step in. Because if I was just to try to get into the truck, I'm definitely going to have to do a little hop. And a little correction, it actually wasn't done raising. So the height for very high is actually 14 inches. So now let's put it into extract mode. So in extract mode, it's actually at its highest it'll go at 16 inches. And that's definitely a big step down even for me. So you're definitely going to want to step onto the running boards to get out of the truck. And then to get in, it's going to be a hop even for me. So I'm definitely going to want to use these running boards. And it makes it so much easier. Going down. Another really nice thing about having these running boards is if you're next to a monster curb like we are here, typically you're going to have to step out of the Cybertruck in between the truck and the curb, potentially spraining your ankle, whereas now we could just simply step onto the running board and then just step out onto the curb. Another thing that these running boards are really nice for is to be able to reach further on the windshield if you have to clean or maybe apply some Rain-X to your windshield. Me just standing on the ground with the truck in its entry mode, this is about as far as I can reach. I can't really reach that far, and I'm still, it's hard for me to see right where I am, and I really can't even see the roof line. But if I stand on the running boards, I can get up so much higher, and it's so much easier to clean off the windshield or whatever you need to, and I can actually reach about the middle of the windshield, and I can actually see now the whole roof as well if I need to clean or something like that. Because you definitely don't want to step onto the interior of the truck to do this kind of stuff. So there are a couple cons to having running boards in general. It has nothing to do with these actual running boards. These running boards are really nice, but it has to do with my particular situation, and you guys might have the same situation where you live as well. So for me, I have to park really close to my garage wall here, and it doesn't leave a lot of room for me to actually maneuver my way out of the truck. So having a running board kind of makes it a little bit harder for me to do, and also I can't open my door all the way like I do have here. But if you have a lot of room like I do now, which is not normal, it's not as hard to get out. And I'll show you in just a moment how hard it is to actually get out of the truck with the running boards here. But again, if you have a lot of room and you want to get out of your truck, if you have big feet like I do, half my foot is kind of hanging off the running board itself. So if I don't put all my weight on my heel, there is a chance of me falling forward off the running board. So now I have to kind of put my foot sideways and then kind of get out of the truck, which again is not a big deal if you have a lot of room. But as you'll see in just a minute, I don't have nearly this much space. So this is how much room I typically have to get out of my truck. You can see how close I am to the wall of my garage, and the running boards add a little bit more, or they take away a little bit more room for me to actually get out of my truck. And I'll show you how much more difficult it is to try to get out of my truck with it being this close. And I can't park any further away because my wife parks on the other side of me. So this is about as much room as I will ever have when parking in the garage. So it was even difficult for me to actually try to get my camera in this little space, but getting into the truck is really not a big issue. As you can see, my door, I have to be careful because it hits the side of the garage because I'm so close. But getting in, I typically step over the running boards and then kind of hop in. But getting out is a different story. Again, I have to kind of be careful of this hitting the wall. And then to try to get out, I don't have a lot of room. So I'm kind of squished between the door, and I gotta kind of really maneuver if I'm gonna step on the running board itself. And then if I try to just step over the running board, I have to reach all the way out here. Again, keeping the door from hitting the wall and then kind of hop out. It's just a little bit more difficult with the running boards in place. So if you have this situation too, this is probably what you're going to run into. So now let's answer the question, can we still jack up our truck if we need to change our tire with these running boards installed? So here I have my little bottle jack here, and underneath the truck right in the front, you can see that the lift point is totally clear. The mounting for the running boards is just off to the right of that. This is in the front. So if you're going to be using the bottle jack, you shouldn't have any problems with jacking up the front part of your truck. Now let's take a look at the rear. And if we take a look at the rear point of the truck, again, you can see that the mounting point for the running board is way off to the side here. So we still have total access to that lift point if we need to lift the truck in the rear. So the jack is in place right underneath the lift point here, and you can clearly see that we can still use this arm to lift the jack by pushing this up and down, but we can't push this up as far as it'll go because the running board is in place. So it's going to take just a little bit longer, but we still have access to lift the jack with the arm here. So now what do I think about the EVBASE running boards? Well, I can definitely tell you that they are a great quality. They also add a ruggedness look to your truck. They're also very functional, especially like I said, if you have pets, you have children, shorter people in your family, it makes it a lot easier for them to actually get into your Cybertruck. But for me, for my situation, like I showed you, it does take a little bit away from the space that I have to actually get out of the truck. But if you have a lot of space, definitely not a big issue. And it also helps with reaching further onto your windshield if you need to clean or something like that. Installation was also pretty easy to do. It did take a little bit of time for me to put them on because some of the instructions were lacking. Like I showed you, it didn't say anything about the different size bolts, so I had to kind of figure it out for myself. And they also do take, I think, about 1/4 to 1/2 inch away from your height clearance. I don't think it's a huge issue. It's just something to note in case you're wondering. So if you guys are looking to pick up a really nice set of running boards for your Cybertruck, I would definitely recommend the ones from EVBASE. And don't forget my links in the video description along with the discount code to save you some money. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.